In the year 536 AD, the sun disappeared. Not all at once, but slowly, over weeks, a veil of darkness crept across the sky. A Byzantine historian named Procopius wrote, "The sun gave forth its light without brightness, like the moon, during this whole year." Farmers in China reported the same thing. Irish monks recorded it in their annals. Tree rings from Scandinavia to South America show almost no growth. For 18 months the sun barely shone, temperatures plummeted, crops failed across the globe. And then, as if that wasn't enough, plague arrived. The Justinianic plague killed somewhere between 25 and 100 million people. Perhaps half the population of the known world. 536 AD, the worst year to be alive in human history, and yet somehow humanity survived. This is the story of what it reveals about the human capacity to endure the unendurable. The day the sky changed. Imagine waking up one morning and the sun looks wrong, dimmed, veiled, as if you're looking at it through smoke. Day after day, week after week, the sun remained dim, a pale disk in a grey sky. Ancient texts describe it with fear. The sun became dark, and its darkness lasted for 18 months. Each day it shone for about 4 hours, and still this light was only a feeble shadow. When the sun fails, the fundamental order of the world breaks. People prayed, they made sacrifices, but the darkness didn't care. What happened? Scientists found the answer in ice cores from Greenland and Antarctica. In 535 or early 536, a massive volcanic eruption occurred, probably in Iceland or North America. The eruption ejected millions of tons of ash and sulfur into the stratosphere, blocking sunlight, lowering temperatures by 1.5 to 2.5 degrees Celsius. That might not sound like much, but it was enough. Enough to shorten growing seasons, enough to kill crops across continents, enough to trigger a cooling period that lasted over a century. Then, possibly worsened by malnutrition, came the plague. Starting in 541 AD, bubonic plague swept through the Byzantine Empire. At its peak in Constantinople, the plague killed 10,000 people per day, bodies piled in the streets. The world was ending. Not metaphorically, literally, the collapse that didn't happen. Here's what should have happened: total civilizational collapse. Famine plus plague plus climate disaster should have destroyed every major civilization, and in some places it did. Archaeological evidence shows entire regions depopulated, trade routes collapsed, cities shrank, but civilization didn't end. The Byzantine Empire, though devastated, survived. China's dynasties fractured, but new ones emerged. Europe transformed from Roman to medieval, but society adapted. Somehow, through the worst conditions imaginable, humanity found a way forward, the communities that survived. Historians studying this period found something remarkable. The communities that survived best weren't the wealthiest or most powerful. They were the most connected. In Ireland, monastic communities survived by sharing resources across monasteries. When one region's crops failed, others sent what they could spare. In the Byzantine Empire, urban centers that maintained civic institutions and mutual aid networks recovered faster than isolated areas. In China, regions that preserved agricultural knowledge-sharing systems rebuilt more quickly. The pattern is clear. Isolation kills, connection saves. When the world falls apart, the people who make it through are the ones who refuse to face it alone. People survived not through strength or technology, but through adaptation. Farmers changed their crops. They planted hardier grains. They moved to different elevations. They shared what little they had. Communities with strong social bonds survived. Communities that turned on each other disappeared from the historical record. What 536 reveals. The year 536 AD teaches us something uncomfortable. We are more fragile than we think, and more resilient than we know. A single volcanic eruption, one random geological event, plunged the world into darkness. No warning, no preparation, no escape. And yet, humans survived. Not because we're strong, but because we adapt. The people of 536 didn't have scientific understanding or stockpiles or medicine. They had each other. They had the willingness to try new things. They had the stubbornness to keep going when everything said to give up. The long recovery. The immediate crisis lasted 18 months, but the consequences echoed for over a century. Populations didn't fully recover for generations. Entire cultures disappeared, and yet, from the ashes, new societies emerged. The medieval world was forged by the survivors of 536. Trauma doesn't just destroy, sometimes it transforms. The survivors passed down lessons, store grain for multiple years, maintain multiple crops, build strong community bonds. These weren't abstract principles. They were survival strategies learned in the worst possible classroom, the mirror of 536. We face our own catastrophes now: climate change, pandemics, economic instability, the fear that the world we know is ending, the uncertainty about what comes next, the temptation to fragment, to hoard, to save ourselves and abandon others. 536. AD teaches us that this is exactly wrong. The survivors of that terrible year weren't the ones who closed their doors. They were the ones who opened them. Because in a catastrophe, your neighbor's survival is tied to your own, the hope in the darkness. Here's the remarkable thing about 536. Despite everything, the dimmed sun, the failed harvests, the plague, the death, humanity didn't just survive, it eventually thrived. New societies emerged, new ideas flourished. Art, science, religion, they all continued. Not immediately, not without immense suffering, but the species endured. Not because we're invincible, but because we're resilient. Because even in the darkest times, enough people choose hope over despair, choose connection over isolation, choose to keep going even when every reason says to quit. The sun did shine again, brighter than before, for a world that had learned to appreciate its light. The year 536 AD was the worst year to be alive in human history, but it wasn't the end. It was a test, and humanity passed. The question is, when our test comes, and it will come, will we remember what 536 taught? That the darkness is temporary, that survival requires community, that resilience isn't about being strong enough to stand alone. It's about being wise enough to stand together, even when the sun disappears.